Hello and welcome back. So now we're talking to Robert Evans, who's Brandon's biokineticist, and he's going to share us his experiences with working with Brandon from the time he's seen him up till now. Robert, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks
and it's a pleasure to have you. So tell us firstly, the minute Brandon was introduced to you, tell us about the condition of Brandon and going up till now.
Oh, if I had to think back, I met Brandon about a year and a half ago, and when he first rolled into our practice, literally he was, let's say, he looked like a patient, if I could put it that way. He looked like someone who needed care or who could basically do with more physical training. And just the contrast from now, looking back, is that now I see him more as an athlete. So I think that's the biggest transition of him going from a patient and now moving past that initial phase of dealing with a tragic injury such as a spinal cord injury, and now moving past that and reaching to greater heights, becoming an athlete.
Fantastic. I mean, you know, as bios, we often look at patients who come out of the inpatient through the outpatient process, and then when they're in with your practice, as you say, you're looking at them as patients. But we could probably say that you working with patients like Brandon, or maybe a person like Brandon, but with just a limitation. Would you say that's true?
I think definitely that brings up a brilliant quote which sums that up: is the only disability in life is a bad attitude.
Yeah.
And I think people with disabilities, that initial phase is where there is that bad attitude, and yes, they should have a bad attitude. You need to mourn and you need to deal with a tragedy in your life, but then over time to overcome that and then not see your disability as a negative thing, but see it as a fresh start and something new to work towards.
Or not let my disability be seen as my inability to do certain things.
100%. And I think you can actually see it in patients when that mind shift changes from being the victim to then overcoming their tragedy and then saying, okay, I'm going to go out and do what I need to do.
Fantastic. So tell us more about Brandon. How's he been with the exercises, with the different types of dosage you've given him, you know, with the different types of intensities? How has he responded to that?
Well, thinking back, so last year our focus was mainly rehabilitation, so regaining as much neuromuscular, so ability to move his arms, his legs, his trunks, as much as function as we can. So that was up until the end of last year, and then started planting the seed of looking forward, looking into sports. What sports can he do? Because obviously he comes from a sporting background, being a national gymnast, so it's only natural to want to compete and want to excel. So after planting that seed, then we slowly eased, well, not myself, but a whole team up in Stellenbosch as well, easing them into athletics and para sports. So starting this year, our focus has definitely been more on ideally getting to the Paralympics September next year. And so with that, I started him on a structured periodized plan, which in a rehabilitation setting is quite rare. Yeah. So a periodized plan is where you structure a training program to focus on different aspects throughout the year. So a brief example would be, first you could focus on hypertrophy, which is building actual muscle tissue, and then you can move on to strength, which is then making that muscle tissue strong. And then finally, if you want to peak for a competition, then you could focus on power, so making the strong muscles act quickly. So that's just an example of a periodized plan where you don't just go into the gym and say, I want to do this and this and this today. It's a very set structured plan so that you can peak at the right time.
Who says you can't apply strength and conditioning to persons with disabilities?
No.
Of course you can. And tell us more about the mindset. You know, often, especially with players with disabilities or different limitations, they need to have that next level barrier of psychology in order for them to go into the next, you know, focus of play. But if we have to compare with your average or your typical patient you would see with a neurological or orthopedic limitation, how would you compare Brandon to them?
Night and day. I think in Brandon's sense, from his past experience as an athlete, there's already that discipline and that willingness to push yourself through pain, which if anyone else would see you, they would question, why would you want to put yourself through that? And it's only irrational. A rational person would actually stop. But it does take, you have to be slightly irrational, a little bit crazy, a little bit obsessed, to push yourself into what other people otherwise wouldn't. But I think by pushing yourself through that barrier, the rewards that you can reap down the line are things that the average person cannot. So it's setting yourself apart from the average Joe.
Fantastic. And how's your relationship with Brandon? I mean, rumor has it that you guys could be having some bromance at the moment. I mean, what's going on?
So when he first came into the practice, obviously he's a patient, and you try and maintain that patient-therapist relationship. I probably kept it up for about 3 months, and then he started to wear down on me. So I definitely see him more as a brother now. Which, so yes, I might be his biokineticist, but also a brother. So we're working towards a collective goal. I think it's a goal that we both want to achieve, and we're both working towards that. So I want to see him succeed, and with me working with him, hopefully we can do that.
Very good. And I say that because a healthy relationship between any professional and a patient or client is so critical that they've shown that it even gives you a 30% enhancement in progress. So
100%.
with you guys having that good relationship, it really does help. But we've seen a lot of these athletes, both at the Olympics and Paralympics, and we've seen the standard that they've put for different types of sports. As a bio, do you really think that Brandon has the capacity or the capability to compete at that level with the sports that he wants to take up?
Without a doubt. I'm willing to put my head on a block with that one. I don't want to give away any times or distances, but we can say he's very much up there with exceeding African records and moving on to more the international stage. So I have no doubt that he will qualify for the Paralympics, and then I think once you're in at that Paralympics, anything can happen, and then obviously our goal will just be to bring home a medal.
Fantastic, hopefully. Rob, anything else you'd like to say about Brandon, or even about his training?
Well, in an interesting sense, from a research point of view, I found it quite interesting that because a big part of high performance training is actually recovery. It's very easy for an athlete to go into the gym and to train really hard, but to do that on a consistent basis, day after day, your recovery has to be spot on. So think of eating, sleeping, just proper daily habits, and in the research with athletes with disability, there's very little research, so you're almost in the dark in trying to structure a training program. So that's been a breakthrough with Brandon, that we've established recovery methods of testing with a spinal cord injury athlete, which we'll hope to apply to other individuals in the future. So I think that's working with people with disabilities, you're learning and you're trying to be innovative all the time. So I think that's the challenge, especially disabilities and high performance sports.
And I think it's a good thing that there's quite a few unanswered questions within the disability and sports setting, because now we can explore the answers to these questions so that we can manage them more appropriately.
100%.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
And right now I know that you're going to be taking Brandon through his paces.
Yes, we're going to have a good session today.
Fantastic. That's all for this episode. Until next time, we'll see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.